And we're live. We're live, guys. Welcome to another episode of Good Morning Liberty. Happy Friday. It is September the 14th. My name is Michael Boldin. We're broadcasting from here in downtown Los Angeles from my home office and studio for the 10th Amendment Center, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time here on the West Coast. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be watching. I'm very grateful for you being here. I don't know if you've got any fun plans for the weekend. Today is actually going to be my Saturday. So after I do this recording, plus a little bit of short kind of cleanup and update work, I'm going to take the afternoon, do a little par 3 golf with a good friend of mine. And then I've got a lot of big projects I'm working on over the weekend. I'm shooting a new round of produced videos on a number of really interesting short topics. I'm going to be doing an update. I've been working on this for like 3 years, or putting it off. And finally, this summer, I've kind of drilled down and organized my schedule and gotten myself to the point where I can get the 10th Amendment Center website relaunched with some new framework. Basically, the site is really outdated as far as its functionality. So I will, if I'm able to get that pulled off, I'll send out an email to those of you who have subscribed to our email list to give you an update, let you know. And if you want to subscribe, it's 10thamendmentcenter.com/register. That's the best way to get our information, that or sign up for our RSS feeds. That's the best way to get up to date on what we're doing outside of the platforms that can kick us out any day, like here at YouTube. Who knows? So I also was asked recently why someone was not getting notifications about... This kind of goes into my spiel of course, you want to smash the likes if you like our work. You want to hit the like button, share, subscribe. Now, when you hit subscribe, you're not, especially on YouTube, you're not automatically going to get updates. If you hit like on Facebook, Facebook is such a scam, man. The way Facebook works is if you like someone's post years ago, they would show the post to most people. Then over time, they literally just stopped showing it to most people. And then they require you to basically pay for those people to see it. Now, here on YouTube, you can kind of get through that a little bit. If you hit subscribe, you will see when you go to your homepage, all the, like on the side panel, if you're on the desktop, you will see all the channels that you've subscribed to with updates. So if there's someone with like 3 new videos, it'll have a little number 3 next to it. But if you want to get notifications, so if you want to be notified as soon as we go live, if you're not aware that we do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, here's what you do. So let's say, and I'm showing you this from the 10th Amendment Center YouTube account. My good friend Tom Woods, we're already subscribed to him, but I'm not getting notifications. So you'll get a little notification that pops up either on your phone or right in the browser. What you do is you go to this little bell and you click it. So now it'll say on the bottom, and it doesn't show because of the kind of the cropping for this episode, but you can see how this little bell is highlighted. If I unclick it, I'm not getting notifications, or I'll get occasional, so YouTube will determine. But if I want to get notified every time Tom Woods uploads a video, and I should, which is all of his podcasts, I just hit this little bell button, and I will get notified. So if you want to do that with us, please do. We upload a video 4 to 5 days a week. The 3 days we do this show, Good Morning Liberty, plus one other short video, generally 1 to 3 minutes on a very specific topic of interest. A lot of times that'll go up over the weekend. And then every other week or so, we do a longer show. Myself and my great coworker, Mike Meharry, who's our National Communications Director, we talk about issues of the day, or during the state legislative sessions, we talk about the nullification bills that are introduced and moving every single week. So that kind of house cleaning out of the way. I did want to today, if you've seen the title, it's kind of a fun one. We're talking about Barack Obama's hypocritical return. And he made a lot of noise talking about how cynicism is bad. And here I am being cynical about his talk about cynicism. But the guy was awful. And Jim Bovard, I don't know if you follow him or not. James Bovard is full name. He's an incredible libertarian. He's written a lot of great stuff on the power of the state. He's done a lot of work on the TSA, surveillance, etc. And for some reason, he's on, and for a long time, he's been on the board of op-ed contributors at the USA Today. And he also was a regular contributor at The Hill. So they publish, someone is publishing almost all of his stuff. And it's really good and pretty radical for these mainstream publications. I don't know how he weaseled his way in there, and sorry, Jim, if it wasn't a weaseling. But man, the fact that you are getting these types of things published is pretty incredible, because it's not generally what the opposition commentary, it focuses just on partisanship. So if you're going to publish something that's anti-Trump, generally it'll take a perspective of saying, well, the Democrats are here to save us. Or if you're going to, like, for example, the Daily Signal, which is a publication by Heritage Foundation, not a mainstream news source, but I was reading something about how states have the ability to do stuff to stop the feds, but it was only in a perspective of, well, the Democrats are bad, and you can't trust Democrats on a state or a federal level. The fact of the matter is you can't trust any of these politicians. Now, Obama, without getting too far off track, is a great example of this. He said some really nice things about the problems that are faced today. But how can you trust him? Bovard's entire article in the USA Today is basically just hammering him. So let's pull this up and we'll talk about it a little bit. I just really want to kind of just go through this point by point because it's pretty awesome. And the cropping, USA Today has really got some weird code, and a lot of other sites use the same thing. So the cropping, when I kind of just resize, it cut off the title. But the title is Barack Obama's Return, just to remind us how he fueled distrust that led to Donald Trump. James Bovard, opinion columnist. So he starts it out by saying, who cares if Obama belatedly cheers for transparency and accountability? He should admit that he made the government more dangerous at home and abroad. Again, Obama was terrible. Let's go through this point by point. How can Obama blame Americans for being cynical after repeating dozens of times his false promise that, quote, if you like your doctor, you'll be able to keep your doctor, despite the dozens of mandates in Obamacare? So of course people are going to be cynical when they hear something like that from the leader of the free world, and it's nonsense. Of course people are going to be cynical. So for him to come in afterwards, now that he's out of office, that the next guy's in there, and say, well, cynicism is our problem, he's not taking any responsibility at all. He didn't say, oh, I'm sorry I contributed to this with the bullcrap that I said. So how can he, Jim goes on, how can he castigate cynics after he campaigned in 2008 on a peace platform and then proceeded to bomb 7 nations? The man who got the Nobel Peace Prize bombed more people than George Bush, who, I'm not sure if it was him, but I'm sure some people of his administration are up for war crimes in some kind of international court at some place. Not that I'm giving that particular venue validity, but the mentality of people towards the Bush administration was that they were war criminals. It's my opinion as well. But Obama was engaged in war in more countries. And he actually, as I've mentioned many times now on this show, he actually dropped more bombs by a significant number than Bush did during his entire 2 years. So Bush dropped his military. The military, when he was in charge, dropped 70,000 bombs. Obama dropped 100,000. It's just that he, like Bill Clinton, tend to take a kind of more sneaky approach to their warmongering. They use drone warfare. They wage wars in multiple locations from above, where Bush was really just in your face with the full-scale invasion of Iraq. So maybe that draws attention, or maybe these people are just hypocrites like Barack Obama himself. Jim goes on and says, Obama declared Friday that Americans are supposed to, quote, stand up to bullies, not follow them. But Trump won in 2016 in part because many Americans considered the federal government the biggest bully in the land. Obama's, just like the previous administrations, his federal government was a horrible bully. And the quote he puts in here is, Obama relied on bureaucratic bulldozing rather than legislative transparency. They issued 50% more regulations than Bush did, and Bush was bad. He also points out that Obama appointees brought in whole body scanners across the nation and entitled TSA agents to aggressively touch travelers' genitals and breasts. But despite all that additional power, TSA remained the poster boy for incompetence. And the TSA checkpoints during the test run, so I don't know if you're aware of this, but they, for years, have done these basically like a secret shopper. So if you I used to work at Target when I was a kid, and we were always warned to be really nice. Maybe it was just to scare us, but I'm sure they employed companies that did secret shopping to see who was doing a good or a bad job, or if the company had good policies. So someone would go there, buy stuff, and they would actually be working for someone. I don't know if they do their own normal shopping or if they're given a company credit card to just buy stuff and see how things go. They ask questions of people about stock and inventory in different departments. They rate the type of feedback they get, and then they give the store manager information. I don't know if they call out individuals unless it's crazy, but this is secret shopping to see if they do a good job. Well, the TSA does the same thing. And 95% of smuggled guns and bombs, they failed to detect them. 95%. So all this security that they give us, the long lines, the pat-downs, the invasive scanners, the rudeness, the arrogance of the system, that if you oppose it, you must be with the terrorists, or what, you don't want people to be safe, you want grandmas to die? So this is the type of response we get from people. But really, they just suck. They don't stop anything. So that came from the Obama administration. Dakota, I worked at, well, hey, good to see you here. I worked at Walmart for a time, and they told us that all the time. Yeah, I got that at Target repeatedly. And I'm sure it happens. I remember when I was looking for a job back then, like I would see job listings, be a secret shopper. Who knows? So I'm assuming it happens. I know this has been reported as far as the TSA. I'm sure it happens in retail. It would be smart business to do that. So going on, Bovard says, despite boasting of the most transparent administration, man, it's hard to say this without chuckling. But Obama claimed he was the most transparent administration ever. But even though he did that, his administration actually expanded federal secrecy and prosecuted more journalists and whistleblowers than any previous administration in history. And the hit list keeps going. Bovard continues about Obama's hypocritical comments. When Obama took office, the U.S. had the 20th most free press in the world, according to an organization, Reporters Without Borders. By 2016, so this isn't just partisan. This isn't just saying, oh, press freedom is bad because Trump's in office. No, I'm sure they actually inflated it to make their guy look better. That's what I would assume. But by 2016, it had fallen to 41st, worse than South Africa and barely ahead of Botswana. Obama administration appointees severely undermined the Freedom of Information Act. So, press freedom, when Obama took office, was number 20 in the world. I'd like to know who, I guess this link would tell us, who are the top, who are way ahead of us. Denmark, Finland, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, Estonia, Netherlands, wow, Belgium, Germany, Japan, Australia, Austria, Malta. Wow. Okay, so U.S. was tied for 20 with Luxembourg and the UK. Not a model of the beacon of liberty on earth, right? That's bad enough. But by the end of his time, it dropped down to 41. And he's talking about being the most transparent, most accountable administration. Yeah, Scouse Jack goes back. Man, that's funny. Talking about the TSA. It's funny in kind of a dark humor kind of way, like Dr. Strangelove. It's laughable, but it's dangerous. They certainly detected iPhones and laptops, though. Yeah, they've detected too much toothpaste, more than 3 ounces. I had a little bottle of water in a bag, and they stopped it. They opened up everything. And mind you, once I was like, oh, man, I forgot this bottle of water. They're like, okay, would you come over here, please? And then, of course, they have to open up your entire bag and go through everything. And mind you, they've really ramped up the security procedures at the airport, the TSA. When my last flight was just before the 4th of July, I went to New Orleans for the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus event with Tom Woods, Bob Murphy, Scott Horton, and a bunch of other great people. And I spoke there, and I was the MC. I was the backup MC for Dave Smith, who couldn't make it. Congrats, Dave, on he's having a baby and getting married. So congrats to Dave if you guys pay attention to Comic Dave Smith on Twitter. Or he's also here on YouTube, too. So when I went, I was just kind of looking to see how things were going. A friend of mine who travels in the music industry, he does sound for a lot of bands and stuff. He said, man, be careful when you go to the airport. The last couple of days has been horrible. And mind you, when they're on tour, they're going everywhere. He said it's just been really bad. So I started reading, and the news was saying, they've really ramped up their security precautions, and lines are going to be really slow, get there extra early. So they're basically taking all kinds of random people, and if they detect anything unusual, instead of sending it through or talking to you about it, basically what would happen is they would say, okay, you got anything weird? Okay, let's take it out and we'll send the bag through again. You put this in the bowl and then you can go through. Instead of doing that kind of process, they're literally taking you to a second checking station. They're not patting you down, but they're literally opening your bag, taking everything out. Like, they're taking my underwear, my socks out, and they said, do you want to do this in a private area? I'm like, no, 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 no. You could look at my underwear here in front of everybody. But they're opening everything up. I had some DVDs I wanted to sell to people. I had some flyers and things like that, and they were freaked out about this stack of DVDs, I guess. They can't find a bomb or a gun, but they were able to find DVDs and see it as a problem. Maybe, well, Woodsider says Studio C on YouTube has a funny sketch on the TSA. I'll have to check that out. I know Reason has done some good ones as well. There's a lot to poke fun of at the TSA, and maybe sometimes that's our best weapon against these people. The more that the general public is like, yeah, man, these guys are clowns, they're terrible at what they do, the better chance we have of getting rid of them in the future. So let's go back to Bovard's article, which is Obama's return reminds us how he fueled the distrust that led to Donald Trump, even though he's claiming that he's transparent, that we should oppose cynicism, etc. So the next section is Obama handed Trump a loaded weapon. Obama is correct that Americans should be on guard against any absolutism from the Trump administration. Of course, you should be on guard against that, against any administration. Not his, he doesn't say. But don't forget that Obama administration lawyers asserted a right to kill U.S. citizens who it labeled terrorist suspects without trial, without notice, and without any chance for the marked individuals to legally object. He's complaining about absolutism under the Trump administration, which is correct, but hypocritically ignoring the fact that he was so absolute that his administration could determine that a U.S. citizen is a terrorist and kill them. No due process, no trial, no nothing. Just kill them. That's not how the system's supposed to work. And that's as absolute as you can be. If you just say, well, you're our enemy, you're dead. And of course, they had the power to do that. The drone king probably killed a lot more people than we're even aware of. He also goes on to say that the administration fought in court to preserve the legality of defunct Bush administration practices, such as torture and detaining Americans arrested at home as enemy combatants. Now, I don't think he even mentioned it, but of course we have the 2012 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. And in that one, Obama actually signed into law indefinite detention. So he's talking about the court case, arguing in favor of it, but he signed into law, which is still on the books today, the NDAA, which authorized the government to detain people. As long as government is at war, then they can say it's a wartime detention. You're not really being arrested, and you'll have your due process when time has come. But mind you, at the same time, we're hearing from generals and kind of bureaucrats and things behind the scene that the war on terror could last a century. So in other words, indefinite. If they detain you in the war on terror and claim that you're a potential enemy combatant, you are going to sit there and rot until you die. Period. So Obama's claim that we shouldn't be, that cynicism is so bad, is partly the result of his actions, his policy. And this is just the type of thing that I try to keep hammering over and over and over, is that the partisanship is really what's most dangerous. Because as long as you ignore the fact that, so people on the left, I would say the mainstream left, I think hard progressives are oftentimes, they'll maybe hold their nose and vote for their Hillary or their Obama. But in hindsight, and maybe even at the time, the hard left is often like, man, these people are terrible too. A lot of them see, and I've been in meetings, for example, I did some organizing against the NDAA here in Los Angeles, a kind of a coalition, Oath Keepers, ACLU, CARE, 10th Amendment Center. Man, I'm trying to even remember. This is like 2013. So this is a weird coalition of people all in the same room together, just working on one goal, setting aside the fact that there would probably be arguments and fights about all kinds of other stuff. But we got together, we met, and we organized to get resolutions introduced and passed here in Los Angeles against the NDAA. It didn't work, but at least we found that we could work together, which I think is very positive. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Oh, yeah. So some of the more far left, and this I only named less than half of the groups that were there. I can't even think of all of them. But some of the people on the left kept ribbing the ACLU as being right-wingers. Well, you right-wingers in the ACLU, and they were serious about it. So people like Hillary to the far left is seen as a right-winger. So the whole chart is wrong. Obviously, if we just go with the Nolan chart, it makes a lot more sense. It's authoritarian versus individualist or libertarian. That's probably a far better approach to this. But the partisanship is what I keep talking about as a problem. Because as long as you see Obama's statement that things are bad because of Trump or because of the right wing, then your solution to that is obviously going to be elect more Democrats. And if the Democrats are doing the same thing or setting the stage for the same thing or being worse, then of course you've just voted for something even worse. So as long as people continue to be blinded by this partisanship, it will never change. So my goal is to keep pointing out that they're all bad. And speaking of partisanship, that brings me to our ignorant comment of the week, which is a fun one. And I was talking a little bit earlier about the number of bombs dropped by Bush and Obama. So 70,000 during the Bush years, 100,000 in the Obama years. And you may have heard me talk on this channel a little while ago about how the Trump administration, actually the per year, he's already ramped that up. In 2017, the Trump military dropped 44,000 bombs. So I went to government school, so my math is pretty bad. In the Bush years, what is that? 70,000 divided by 8. So like maybe 9,000 bombs per year. Obama's 100,000, what is that, like 10,000 a year? 9,000 a year. No, 12, right? 12,000. So it went from 8 to 12 to 44,000. So clearly there's been a heavy increase in this bombing. So we sent this out in an email campaign recently to let people know about it. And one of the responses we got is this from a guy named Jay. I won't give you his last name, but Jay in New York says, "Stop spreading bullshit propaganda. No 44,000 bombs were dropped. And even if they were, Trump has to clean up deep state's freaking mess overseas and get rid of them." This couldn't be a bigger shove your head in the sand, nah, 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 I'm not listening to you, than anything. He's literally saying it didn't happen. And even if it did, it's okay. He's refusing. Now, mind you, the information we got on the number of bombs comes right from Air Force's Central Command. You can go to the website, look up Air Force, just Google Air Force's Central Command, and you will find they have a website, and you could probably dig through and find basically yearly munitions report, I think is what it's called. So if the Air Force is telling us that 44,000 bombs were dropped, I guess either Jay thinks that the Air Force is lying, he thinks the military is spreading propaganda, which as an agent of government, all government agencies do spread propaganda. But the propaganda is that the number has gone up. So we can take it with a grain of salt if we want, but let's just say take the numbers on the face value that 8 years of Bush resulted in 70,000 bombs. 8 years of Obama resulted in 100,000 bombs. And 1 year of Trump resulted in 44,000 bombs. So he's saying it didn't happen. Well, maybe it did. But if it did, then it's okay. So without even knowing what's going on, you immediately call it propaganda. And then you immediately say you don't care. And Will Johnson says context is very important. When were they dropped and where? Well, the point of the video that we shared was that there has been no declaration of war. And under the founder's definition of what war is, and Will, I know you were commenting on this maybe just a couple of days ago. Under the founder's definition of war, it is the use of violence by a sovereign over that which is opposed. So 44,000 bombs have been dropped by a sovereign government, the United States, through its military, somewhere. And no declaration of war has happened. So the video that I made was basically if you turn a blind eye to constitutional violations, and mind you, we're going to have a couple more on this in the near future. Mike Meharry just put one together on some advice from John Adams, and I'm going to do a video on this. George Washington, his farewell speech, which is next week, his farewell speech specifically warned against turning a blind eye because you may like the outcome in the short term. So if you turn a blind eye to the fact that Congress has the power to declare war, and when you just allow the executive branch to do it, over time, what the executive branch does with that power is going to be ramped up. And that's exactly what we've seen on the power to declare war. Oh, well, they can just do it as an emergency or short term. Well, when that happens, we see that 8,000 bombs per year turns into 12,000 bombs per year, turns into 44,000 bombs in a single year. So the point is stick to the Constitution. Now, it is a valid question to say, okay, well, how's it being used? Woodsider says, Operation Freedom. Oh, okay. So Woodsider's actually responding to Will saying where they're being used. Freedom Sentinel, 4361. Inherent Resolve is 39,000. So 43,938 total. Thank you for pulling that up. I did not have it handy. So 44,000 in 2017. So maybe you support the mission. Maybe you don't. But to say, oh, automatically it didn't happen means you don't care about facts, you just care about your team. And then to also take the position without even knowing whether it happened or not, that if he did it, it must be okay. You couldn't have a worse position. And that's the way that the Democrats basically treated Barack Obama. If Barack Obama's doing it, it's okay. And now they're complaining about the fact that the Trump administration is basically doing the things that Obama did and possibly ramping up in many situations the things that he did and turning a blind eye to it. People like Jay in New York are just saying, well, if he's doing it, must be okay. So kudos to you, Jay in New York, for Ignorant Comment of the Week. We had a nice response on this on Twitter from Jim, who says probably the month and possibly the year. That's how ignorant that one is. So that wraps it up for us today. Just that one story I wanted to cover. It was so good. I really appreciate the writing of Jim Bovard. I hope, like me, that you are learning something. I hope you found something interesting here. This is all extremely interesting, and that you're going to have a really good weekend. I'm going to be working really hard, but today, don't be jealous. I'm definitely going to take the afternoon off, spend a little time outside at the golf course with my friend. I haven't done that in probably a year, so it is going to be really nice today, and then I'm going to be hammering it out over the weekend. We'll be back for this show Monday, Wednesday, Friday, next week, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you want to get notifications. Again, one more time, just hit this little bell like I'm doing here on Tom Woods' page. And when it's got the little lines over it, you're going to get notifications in your browser or on your phone as soon as we upload or start a new video. And that definitely helps us spread the word. Thank you, EHP Training. I'm definitely going to have fun. And it'll just kind of give me a reset for a long weekend of work that I'm doing this weekend. And we'll be back here on Monday morning again, 9:30 a.m. I'm very grateful for you spending some time with me today. And I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.